Hi there, class. Today we're working on the conceptual massing assignment for your vacation home. If you look through this assignment, you can tell that we're doing something that's kind of fun, kind of enjoyable. And we're going to use Sketchup to do this. We're going to go back to your Part diagrams. We're going to take some of those sketches, some of the ideas that you've generated, some of the understanding you've gained about what your vacation home can be, and turn it into something more concrete. Make some visuals out of it that are a lot more clear for understanding. And you can see that these can kind of help you organize what your project can be volumetrically. So this is not a floor plan, and we don't know what the floor plan is yet, and the floor plan can continue to evolve. But first we're going to say, what are some of the forms and shapes that could exist that my floor plan might be able to fit into? And that floor plan, it can change all along the way. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but we'll start with some forms and we'll see if we can make our floor plan fit within. So it starts off very simple. And then we move through all these iterations, adding additional forms, or in some cases, subtracting and adding more complexity. And we want it to look good. This is something that you'll put on your poster at the end of the semester when you've got all the graphics for all the design work that you've done. We'll compile them all together, and this looks really good on a poster. Here's another example. This would be a commercial building example. And once again, same thing. We kind of move through complexity. This is what a final design could look like after starting with something basic, some kind of form generator like what you see here. So this is really cool. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to jump now over to SketchUp. Now I'm going to start off by showing you the finished product of what this could turn into. And then I'll go back through and just give you some ideas about how I arrived here and how I got here. Okay, first of all, you can see that we're going to take a bunch of shapes and we're going to put them side by side, even though my camera angle is not looking at them straight on. I'm kind of looking from the corner here so that I can see part of the top, the left, and the right. And so even though these move from left to right, they're not moving along the axis. Because if they did, I probably wouldn't be able to see three sides at once. Okay, and then you can also see that I've grouped everything within one sequence. And if you go inside of that, then you'll find additional groups. And then everything that's done in color, it's just really simple using the material, the bucket painter, and just finding solid colors. Okay, so again, this is just the finished product. Let me take you through a few steps just to show how you can set this up. Okay, we'll start off with a blank slate. So I'm going to pull over another SketchUp scene. And I believe if you're starting from scratch, this could be either inches simple or inches architectural. Either one would be fine. Let's go with this one. There we go. You can see some of that blue in the background. Okay, the other project was just white, pure white in the background. So the first thing we'll do is fix that. Okay, to do so, go over here to your trays. We're going to open up styles. If you don't see that, be sure to just go to Windows, Default Tray, find Styles. Okay, once here, I want you to go, well, I'm going to go back to this Edit button where it already was, but I want you to see what it looks like initially. It should have Select active, and we're going to change that to Edit. And then find the third box, Background Settings. Click on that, and that will pull up your background, your sky, and a few other settings. Okay, our background, we would like it to be pure white. So we click there and just pull that up on the color slider, and then it turns white. I'll say okay. Background just went white, but we have this blue sky. We'll turn that off too. Just deselect, and now we got a perfectly white background. Okay, the guy that's in here, he's actually going to be a little bit helpful just for a while. So even though eventually I'll probably delete him out, I want him there for scale, at least in the beginning. Okay, the next thing we want to do is go over here to camera, and we're going to change this from perspective to parallel projection. And if you've never used parallel projection before, it's basically SketchUp without perspective. Okay, you can always go back and see what it would look like. There's with perspective and parallel projection. So there's no more vanishing points. There's just vanishing directions. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to find just the perfect angle. And going back to my other example, we're trying to find something that lets us see 3 sides. And if you weren't careful, you'd be seeing it more like this, and then you don't see the top very much. Or maybe if you look too straight on, then you don't see that side over there. So make sure that you get something kind of like what you see here. This is probably from a ground plane down here, maybe like 30 degrees, almost like an isometric, what we call an isometric. So some angle like that. And unfortunately, you're going to be locked in to whatever you choose right here in the beginning. Right, we're about to do this, and then you'll be locked in. So let me delete this and start over with that. We're going to draw our first shape. You're not locked into your angle just yet, but let's draw our first shape. Make this about 35 feet by 35 feet. And to do that, notice down here in the bottom right, I didn't do it right, but I can see what size my square is going to be. And if you don't have these, just right click and select measurement label and measurement value. I actually just learned that today. They were turned off in the lab. Anyways, R for rectangle. And then draw this out. And you can see those dimensions over there in the bottom right. I'm going to type in 35 foot, comma, 35 foot. And then enter. And there we go. Okay, there's my first little configuration. You don't have to use this size. It's just that that's going to be... well, whatever it's going to be. Let's test it. 35 by 35. That's going to be 1,200 square feet ish. And I'm guessing that few of you would have any footprint that's larger than that. So we're basically just saying, this is kind of the beginnings of the biggest footprint that I anticipate. And you could go outside of it a little bit, but 1,600 square feet is the maximum, and that's on 2 stories. So most of you won't have anything bigger than that. Okay, now let's make it a cube. And I'm going to triple click it, then M for move, and just move it across and copy. Actually, no, let's make it a group. And you should do this for now too, even though many of you might say, that's not the beginning for me. It's not going to look like that. That's all right. We're just doing a quick little setup here. Okay. So actually get the angle that you think you like. And the reason being is you want to move this over to the right, but perfectly over to the right. In fact, a lot of times I'll do this. I'll do L for line. And if I think I like my angle for the camera, I'll just draw a line over. And I can't follow any of the axes. This is completely out of axis. And then I'll just copy that down here so that we get kind of two layers or 2 levels of this. Okay, and then I can easily move those along that line. And this is just helping me to see where 6 iterations would land, because that's what you're required to do for the assignment. You got to get 6 of these. Okay, that's pretty good. I'll pull this up. Okay, I'm not using any of these, but if I like the angle or not, it's not too late, right? I can still change it. And notice that if I decide that I want a different angle, then I'm probably going to have to draw that line again, because it's getting shifted. Okay, but anyways, somewhere in here, that looks good to me. This is where you get locked in. I've got to go make a scene out of this. So let's find our tag for scenes down here at the bottom. And I'm going to click plus. Go ahead and save this as a new style. And now if I get out of the view because I start working on the project, I can always go right back to that scene. These lines, eventually I'll just delete those out. Right now, I think they're actually kind of good to have in there. I wouldn't delete them out yet, but eventually those will go away. And eventually this will be true iterations, and there will be 6 of them. Okay, so again, now's the time if you decide maybe you don't like that angle. I would change it now. It's going to get harder as we go forward. It's never actually too late. It's just going to get harder down the road. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we can probably get rid of these now. That was just to kind of see the landscape a little bit. We'll go back to this one and let's paint it because it needs to be gray. You know, I have a white background and I want this thing to pop just a little bit. So we're going to go B for bucket. That will open up your materials over here. From the drop down, I want you to go find solid colors and then scroll all the way to the bottom until you find these grays. And then I'm going to have to double click on my group here, paint that in gray. Actually, if you hold down, one of these buttons will just paint it all gray. There, I think I got it. It's either Control or Shift that I was holding that gives those dots. You can actually look down here and see what it will do. So Shift is paint all matching, Control is paint all connected. So that was probably the one, the Control. Okay, that certainly pops a little bit better now. Is it too dark? I mean, maybe you can try a different one. Yeah, I think it was too dark. This is better. Okay. And feel free to try as many as you want over here to make sure that you really like it. Now this, once again, it is a group, not a component. And you can't do this as a component because it's going to change. Every time it iterates, it's going to change. So if you change the next one, you'd be changing the original. So you can't really do that. Okay, now start to think about if this is a 30 by 30, and let's see how tall it is. 10 feet tall. You know, that's just kind of a normal space. Actually 35 by 35, but 10 feet tall, kind of a normal space. Now start to think about what do I want to do for my volume? And go back to some of your sketches and try to formulate some cool ideas. Not necessarily based on where it's going to end up yet. You don't know that yet, but what are some changes that you could make to this? Okay, the one that, if you go back to the graphic that I have, the one that you would see is kind of like this. Actually, let's do this a different way. I got to go inside here. Mine is about half of that shape. What just happened? Try that again. That line had disappeared. That was weird. Okay, I'm going to just push-pull this away. And there's one group, right? So now I'm going to take the next one, pull it over, and I had lifted mine up to show that it's going to be moving down into position. Because I'm going to have two different volumes here. They're going to end up looking the same as if they were one, but they have different uses. So this is going to be kind of a public where you enter, and this is going to be all the private spaces inside of a vacation home. Okay, and I'm going to lift that up a little bit further, and eventually, again, like I said, it's going to look as though it's landing right next to the first cube. Okay, I'll go back to my scene to get the right angle. And the next thing I'll do is add in these lines. You probably saw previously that there were some lines that made it look like it's going to go and land in this spot right next to it, but they were dashed lines. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you how to set up is dashed lines. Maybe not the last thing, but one of the last things. Okay, in order to make this dashed, you have to go over here to your tags. Let's minimize materials and open up tags. And using tags is a great thing for any SketchUp model. You don't have to use it that heavily for what we're about to do, but at the very least, you want to use it for this. I'm going to create a new tag, and I'll just call it dash or dashed lines. Okay, and then over here under dashes, we'll change the default to whatever kind of dash you want to use. This one looks good to me. And then I'm going to select the lines that I want to see in dash, and I'll change their tag either by I could just come up here and change them to dashed lines, or I can select dashed lines over here and then use the tag tool. And then I'll just have to pick them. And I'm not getting it right. I'm not sure why. Hold on. Tag tool. I got this one active. It's selected. And boom. I just wasn't clicking on it properly. There we go. Okay. So these are not part of a group or anything yet. And this is not something that I want to have dashed. But the thing I got to explain over here really quick is that this is still my active layer. It's called untagged. So everything that didn't get dashed is on the untagged layer. And that's going to continue to happen no matter what, because the pencil is right here. See, the pencil can change the active tag, and then you can also change the tag that you're using the tag tool for. That's really confusing. Make a long story short, I don't ever move this pencil. Just leave it on untagged, and that means everything that you create will be created on the untagged layer. And then when you want to change something, make it blue, highlight it in blue. It's not the active layer, it's just highlighted. And then use your tag tool, and that will just convert something to whatever's highlighted in blue. If I were to do this one, well, it's not going to do any. Oh, it is going to do anything. I didn't think it would because this was a group, but I take it back. If I were to click on that one, see, that now becomes dashed, but that's not really what I was trying to do. Honestly, it doesn't look that bad. Like, you could leave it there and just say, that's part of the method I'm choosing to show that it's moving in a position. You could do that, but I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do in this one is just show a little arrow coming downward to indicate that this is going to come down and end up in that position. And if you remember the other graphics, see, I've got a lot of these. I choose color and arrows all throughout this. So here's the arrow that I'm about to place. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just show you how to add some color, how to do some subtracting, and then you can just do whatever you want with this. Okay, so let's go back over. We want to create a little arrow here, and it's probably easiest to do this on the ground. So the first thing I'm going to do is R for rectangle. Think about the size that you want this to be, and if it jumps like that, then just pick an axis. So I think I want mine to be in the green, or actually the blue. There we go. I want mine to be in the blue so that it's going to be on the ground. Okay, there it is. And then the next thing is I'll go to draw shapes. We'll make a polygon. Down here, I want it to be 3-sided. So whatever you plug in, if you haven't clicked anywhere, just type in a number and hit enter. So now I've got that didn't work. It actually does that to me a lot. I don't know why. I hit 5, enter, see, and now it updates. The second time, for some reason, it updates. But I want to go back to 3. So 3, enter. Now I got a rectangle, or sorry, a triangle. I know my shapes. And we're gonna click on the edge of the rectangle we drew, and just pull this through to whatever size you want it to be. And then delete out the excess that we don't want with the E for eraser tool. And I got an arrow. If you don't like your arrow, then, just go back and change whatever it is you didn't like. Like maybe mine was just a little bit on the big side. Let's shrink that down a bit. And I like that better. Okay, we do want this one to be a group, so I'm gonna right click and make that one a group. I mean, this one probably would be fine as a component too. And now we just got to give it color. So B for bucket. That pulls up the materials box or tray. Find some kind of a cool color. I mean, there's so many cool ones in here. And I think I want to go with maybe an orange this time. We'll paint that. And I've got my arrow, which can now be reconfigured, according to a different plane if I wanted to. So I'm going to do Q and rotate this thing. And this is the trickiest part is, how do I get this to go the way that I want it to? So Q for rotate, and then I'm going to come right up here on the front and push my left arrow so that I get the protractor to swing up and down. And now rotating it would be like this. You can also scale this thing. So if I wanted it smaller, I can do that. And we'll just push this over to here. You could have it run along that plane. I actually don't like that. I think I'm gonna switch this up. Let's go 90 degrees this way. Yeah, see, I can just see more of it. See it a little bit better. Okay, and that's kind of like what you need to know. The rest of this you can do. You're pretty much on your own for. But in my next iteration, let me go back to my scene. I will just copy that along the line. And then I'll copy it again because I didn't do a good job of that. Let's try that again. So this is where you kind of go, wait, where along the line should it be? And you might just find yourself moving it up and down the whole time. Maybe I'll do something like that. My next iteration, if I show you my other one again, added a deck. And so that's what you're seeing here, a deck being added on. Same thing with color. You know, I drew the shape, I added the color. And then over here, I started to subtract and add. So these little pieces, they get added onto. By the time you get to the next iteration, their color goes away. So you just keep on painting them. That's why, they can't be components. They're just grouped pieces. These were green as they're being added. This one could have been green too. I don't know why that one's not. This one's red while it's being subtracted. In the next iteration, the red one is gone completely. And the ones that were green have now turned to gray. So again, that one should have been green. I mean, we can do that. If you ever want a color to come back, like what is the green, you push the eyedropper tool. I for eyedropper. It's not working for me, but okay. Well, B for bucket. We'll go find it here then. Here's materials. There's your eyedropper. And I just pick that. Now I've got green. I'll go paint inside here. I'll paint this guy if I can. If it won't let me, I'll just keep going inside. There, now that one's green. And now I know why. See, that was a component, and that's a bad idea because now these are all green too. So anyways, I think you've got the idea. And in the very end, if you want it to look more like a finished product, like I added these columns and some beams, sure, you can do stuff like that. You don't know what this will be at the very end of the semester. Like maybe your little graphic here doesn't look very much like the finished product anymore. You can always come back and change this. Or you can leave it alone and just say, you know, that's just how my project came to be. It started off with something like this. Okay, so when you're all done, we'll go back to the scene. And what I see here in the scene is what I'm going to export. So I would, at that point, I'd probably be ready now to get rid of these lines. I would see 6 iterations. And then I'm going to go File, Export, 2D Graphic. And we're looking for either a JPEG or a PNG. Now, ideally, a PNG would be great because we wouldn't have a background. I don't know yet. I haven't tried to see if that'll actually work. So I'm going to tell you that JPEG is what I've always done in the past and that it's worked out great. But I'm just going to try this as a PNG to see what happens. And by the way, when you pick what you want, you give it a name. Call this a mass model. And then you go to options and you give it a size based on pixels. We've done a little Photoshop work now, so we have an idea, of how many pixels we would need. Or maybe we got to go to Photoshop and then figure it out. Under use view size, these are the pixels I get. So if I want it to be bigger, just deselect that. And let's say that I want this to be like 2500 pixels. And it will automatically update if you just change one proportion. Okay, and then I'll say okay. And export. There's my JPEG if I wanted one. Let's try it as a PNG. And at this point, if you feel like you're done watching, you can do that because I'm just going to do this to find out if we can get, transparent background. It's right there. Was that option available in JPEG? It was not. Okay. So I'm glad you kept watching if you're still here. PNG, go to your options And yeah, we want to make that a transparent background. Then when we pull it into Photoshop on our poster, it'll just be easier to do some cool stuff with. And then I'll click OK and export. Okay, good luck.